The Uvm Aero Club is test driving a car they've designed and built themselves.
Also, don't let off the accelerator. Let's try not to come.
Don't let off it.
Thomas Field is the club president.
Aero is the alternative energy racing organization. We design and build an electric race car entirely student-driven, entirely student-built.
Field and his teammates have been tightening bolts and soldering switches on this car for months. This test drive is part celebration and part proof of performance that the countless hours spent getting to this point in the process were, indeed, worthwhile. In the weeks leading up to the test drive, Brody Lusberg has been managing his expectations.
I'm a big car guy. I really, that's where my passion is, that I'd love for this thing to drive. And I mean, being a third year, I still haven't seen the car drive since, the COVID years and that not really panning out as we hoped. It'll be very, very exciting for, years of waiting to be able to see it drive.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday. We were talking about because I was asking.
Before joining the Aero team, Alyssa Sestone wasn't really interested in cars, but she's always had a passion for math and science.
When I was looking at school senior year, I had zero clue what I wanted to do. But I knew that I really liked in school math and science particularly. And going into engineering, you obviously know that it's a male-dominated field. You know what you're getting yourself into. You know that it's math, you know that it's science, and you just kind of dive straight in. Every single person I met is so sweet, so nice, and just everyone's an engineer.
UVM students have been designing and building race cars for decades. Across the Fence first reported on this race team over 20 years ago.
It's not exactly a vehicle you'd take for a Sunday drive. This is the UVM Mini Baja amphibious vehicle, and it's getting road tested in preparation for competition against other top engineering schools.
53 teams all received the same engine, which is a 10 horsepower, and that's constrained. And other than that, we had some measurements that we had to keep the car within, but just to gain as much mechanical advantage as you can out of your design to compete.
Problem solving is definitely the key here. You have a problem and you have to come out with the end result, and getting there and the steps you take. The engineering mind helps you get there, helps you step through on the logical process to find the answer. And that's something that you can't really learn in a classroom, but you learn in your college career in engineering.
The engine whirs more than purrs now, powered by 302.2 volts of electricity, to be precise. The gas engine may have been switched over to electric, but the competition and the competitive spirit remains the same.
It's mainly a design competition, so a big chunk of it is presenting what we designed, presenting why we did certain things with the car. There are driving events and static events, so some of them are endurance. There are acceleration ones, braking ones.
There is a rule book like this thick full of the rules that we need to abide by. It's like abiding by the rules, but finding the ways to kind of get the best out of them. The driving portion is not as big as people would like to think it is. I kind of wish it was more, but you can't have a fast car without it being built well. Also safety. It's got to be safe.
The Aero Club is financed by UVM's Student Government Association. Continuity is key in this club. As the car is passed from one class to the next, it's often redesigned and, if need be, improved. For example, the car that went to last year's competition couldn't even get off the ground.
The suspension didn't perform as it should have last year. The car was kind of sitting on the ground. So we needed to obviously change that.
They completely redesigned the suspension and used programming to optimize the handling, the ride height. So it's a lot of little things like that.
What about the lap?
Another change from last year's model is the steering wheel and the cockpit. Updates that improve the form and function of the race car.
We're going to have a little interface on the wheel with some start buttons. We do already have a dashboard for the car that has all the buttons on it, but one of the issues with the last frame was our knees were hitting the dashboard, so we were trying to figure out how to get rid of it. And putting everything on the wheel seemed to be the best option, and they're more accessible to the hands while driving.
One thing that we didn't realize until we got a prototype was we didn't really think about the grips and how the wheel would handle in our hands. And so now we have to go back and kind of redesign so that way it doesn't feel so awkward. But it's not something you necessarily think about when you just see it on the screen and you're just looking, you're like, oh, that looks like a wheel. It's functional, but is it comfortable?
You may have noticed the changes the team intended to make to the steering wheel weren't implemented in the final design. A good reminder that the design process is subject to change and the constraints of time. The steering wheel underlies the hands-on learning opportunities of a student-run organization.
So what I really like about it is it gives us a lot of chance to actually do design work. So this is one of the first places where you're able to get the hands-on engineering experience. A lot of classes do have some project-based aspects to it, but they aren't really too expansive, whereas with this we're able to build an entire car.
It's looking all right. I enjoy a lot of the hands-on stuff. I like seeing things work. Because so often, I mean, obviously you need to see yourself fail and see things fail to then, improve upon them and get to where you need to go. But once you get there, it feels really good. It's a good sense of pride in what you've made or the hard work you put in. And that goes for anything really. That goes for stuff here, goes for schoolwork, goes for anything else that we do.
It's very important to me to get more hands-on experience and kind of broaden my education as much as I can, because other than shop, there's not really a hands-on experience in this sort of aspect. We have like our materials labs and our fluids labs, which are really cool, but it's not necessarily what I'll be doing once I leave college. And this is more like one of the jobs you can have is working in a shop. This is unique. My friends who go to UNH who are also engineers, I do brag to them about Aero. And I say, guys, I'm in this really cool club and we build a battery operated car and we race it at a competition. And they're like, oh my gosh, that is so cool, tell me more.
Designing and building this car has allowed the team members to develop life skills that aren't always taught in the classroom.
I think the biggest thing that we've all learned since being in college and being in this basically huge group project together is just communication. It's like knowing who's available when and how much effort they're willing to put in and the time that they can give to you is a really huge part that I think we all kind of struggled with in the beginning, but now we know that it's just a crucial part to just communicate.
It's important to contribute to a team, and it's nice to have people who have your back. So it's nice to kind of have each other's backs and be able to help each other out. And that's going to be true in all of our careers later on, working on a team.
As much as this car represents problem solving, hard work, and determination, it's also a vehicle these students will use in their future careers.
I've learned over the past 3 years that there's kind of infinite applications for the degree that we're working towards. Places I never even knew I could find a job, or like at least look for a job, have come up. Pretty much everything in the world needs engineers. Everything's designed by an engineer. So even the most obscure things you can kind of find work in, and you can find interest in those things too that you didn't know you had the opportunity to.
Because a lot of the jobs that we're going to be applying for going into the field, or if we want a higher level job, starting out with some of that experience sets us apart and gets us a little bit further ahead. So also when jobs are asking for X number of years experience, we can kind of count it as experience because it is engineering.
I am going to be a process engineering intern at Global Foundries. One of the main things they asked me in my interview for an internship this summer, they just were asking about Aero and the hands-on experience and different things that I've done through Aero to, better prepare myself for the workforce. And I went through everything that I was doing and what my role is as a cockpit lead. And they were just very interested in it because it is something cool and kind of unique to being in this club at UVM.
Being a member of UVM's Aero team guarantees you're going places. At the University of Vermont, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.